My name's Anson, and I am part of the legal team at iQmetrix. I am not yet a lawyer, but hopefully in a couple of months I will get to the bar. But basically, I am part of the legal team. We deal with legal issues and trying to minimize legal risk day to day at iQmetrix.
So when I was in university, my first summer job was working essentially as an accountant, and this was the first time I ever realized that you could be an accountant. You just can't sign the documents at the end of the day if you don't have any sort of designation. So when you say you're not a lawyer, but you're on the legal team, is that like, are you doing law stuff, or what's your role then if you're not a lawyer?
Yeah, I think that is very much similar to your accounting experience, in that I suppose I have a little bit more of an ambit to do legal research, to draft documents. Essentially, what happens with the articling program is one lawyer has to sign off on the responsibility. So in this case, Jen, which is our general counsel, uh, has a responsibility for everything I do. In a lot of ways, articling students can be quite free or can be quite restricted depending on who their principal is. In this case, I do have the ability to sign documents, um, to make decisions, to do these things up to the comfort level that Jen has. And so for us, we've kind of set out a rough path of if it crosses X amount of dollars, you should probably double check with me before signing off.
That's a pretty common rule. Everybody like is limited at $1 million. They gotta
Yeah,
check with somebody else.
and I wouldn't want to be signing it anyways. It's I gladly double check beforehand because once it gets up there, I don't want that responsibility if I screw up, right?
That's fair enough. So iQmetrix and having a legal team is relatively new at all. What are some of the responsibilities or outcomes that you guys have to are responsible for within the legal team?
Sure. I think there is really nothing too surprising. There's really two tasks that legal tries to handle. The first is, of course, if there are legal issues that crop up, you want to make sure that they're taken care of. Kind of an obvious one. The longer term goal is to assess legal risk and try and minimize it. So you can do that in 1,000 different ways, but part of it is that you're always going to live with some level of risk, and you have to start picking and choosing which ones to prioritize, which ones are more likely, which ones have more impact. And so part of our task is to make sure that all of the existing legal issues are dealt with. And because, as you said, the legal team is fairly new, there is kind of baggage from the past that we're trying to deal with. And of course, day to day, there are new legal issues cropping up. And then longer term, we're hoping things like this video, training, education for the employees at iQmetrix will create a team that's more aware of legal risks, more aware of issues that come up, because at the end of the day, the employees have a lot of abilities to take care of legal risks, to know what's right and wrong, to recognize problems before they show up.
Thanks for that. Anson, I'm sort of curious about uh, how the interactions with legal typically happen. I maybe you guys have a almost like a backlog of things that you need to take care of, or are you requested to come in on things, or do you see things and say, "Hey, we should help you out"? Like where does a legal need come from?
I think that is all of the above, I suppose. For the most part, a lot of times we have a really good set of people here at iQmetrix that do recognize risk. So almost every day I do have emails in my inbox that is coming from some developer saying, hey, I got some personal information in our data, you know, that we're supposed to handle, go through our system. What is our responsibility? What is our obligation to protect it, to transfer it, to delete it, whatever that may be. But at the same time, we are trying to have those conversations informally. And so we were talking previously during our hackathon, Nevin, that one of the really useful tools that is less present in the COVID era is going out of your way in the office to have little conversations where something crops up. Hey, are we really supposed to be doing that? Hey, that's a cool project you're working on, but have you thought about these risks? And most of the time, it's an interesting reminder, and we want to engage people as early as possible because, as you can imagine, it's very easy to send a quick email or Slack message saying, we're working on this product, we're at the design phase, prototyping phase, versus 6 years down the line. Somebody's complaining, somebody's threatening a lawsuit. We can't rebuild overnight. So hopefully we are getting that communication in informally through email, us reaching out, but hopefully always as early as possible.
I'm trying to think of if or how I like my actions would result in a legal conversation, and I think that anything that's on my radar is not even close to the kind of attention that you guys are probably paying in terms of um, uh, data security and assuring that we're properly handling payment methods and stuff like that. Uh, but when we're talking, I'm like, oh, I don't get anybody to sign a release for the videos that I do. And they might go viral, and I will take all of the revenue, and no one will get any of the revenue for our viral conversation. Like, should I check?
It's never a bad idea. I mean, we have a legal team. I'm on Slack. There's no reason not to send a message. I mean, even out of pure curiosity. I mean, I am curious. Where does the revenue go if if this becomes a real moneymaker, right? I would think there may be things in our employment contracts that might have something to say about this. But it's an interesting exercise, and I think some people that do come and message legal are purely out of curiosity, and then you do think about it, and as we go along, I'm thinking, do we have a release? Are people understanding where these videos might go and what kind of implications that may have? Say if I say something really offensive or something inappropriate. And so, maybe this is something that you should send to my desk and we can talk about it.
Before too many alarm bells go off, they're hosted on IQU, so I'm personally not going to make any revenue. But yeah, I and it was totally hypothetical. We don't have to worry about the legal risk of this one just yet.
Not yet.
I you referenced or mentioned our hackathon, which is another thing I'm sort of just purely very curious to know about. Is we both sort of joined a hackathon because it was like not necessarily technical. You can come join up. Can you tell me about your choice to engage in the hackathon?
Sure. I think hackathons are really quite an interesting experiment. And there is this perception, oh, hackathons are programmers getting together for 2 or 3 days to try and create something. But I think you and I experienced something different. We are not programmers. We didn't build the tools, but we did have those kind of conversations where we crossed a bit of expertise. Yes, Andrew, who did all the programming essentially, but we had a bit of insight. What are the problems, say, legal is facing? What does your experience have to say to it? And I think more people should do hackathons, even if they aren't programmers, even if they aren't building anything, because it is it's that idea of crossing through different expertise, joining different ideas, and that's where kind of new ideas come from. You look at it from a radically different perspective. So I will mumble on about how difficult this particular problem is, but to have you come in entirely fresh to explain it entirely fresh is a driver for innovation, I would think.
That's well said. I think we both had that experience. It was really neat. I mean, we're actually more connected now and know each other and stuff. Like I really discovered Anson just going through that process, and it's so cool.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Even if it was an entirely useless application, even if it turned out to be a horrible failure, 2 or 3 days of bonding, of hard work, of meetings, at the very least, you made some new friends. You found out about an entirely different area of iQmetrix that you haven't seen before. And so, as somebody relatively new to iQmetrix, that was really useful too. I had no clue who you were before.
That's great. Thank you. Um, so I'm going to go back to the legal team a little bit. Sounds like it's a challenge or a growth area for you guys to figure out how to best educate and have people be mindful of risk and legal implications. Um, I, do you have advice or guidelines for people that you're not able to share very effectively that would be helpful? I guess one is just Anson's on Slack. Real easy to go talk to him about these kinds of things. What are key areas you guys are focused on?
I think uh, no, that's a
I,
difficult question.
I think I asked two questions and I apologize.
Oh, no worries. I think one of the first things is that it's difficult to recognize legal risk, and I don't think there is a way for people to be aware of everything. So, for example, right now, data privacy is obviously the flavor of the month. Everybody's talking about it. The laws are getting stricter. I think everyone in our organization is aware to at least a certain degree to have kind of that fishy smell. Something is wrong here. Something isn't right, or I should be double checking this. But there are entire areas where I have never seen before. So just yesterday or the day before, somebody brought up that California has very specific laws about how a POS should be designed. Um, I've never seen that before. I was not aware of that. We're looking into that now, of course, but um, there are areas where we would never know. And so this is why it's important to have a lot of faces because sure, legal team knows a bit about where we're going, knows, hopefully has a large picture view of what our major risks are. But when somebody reads an article on the newspaper, when a client raises an issue, when a coworker, somebody on the design team just says, there's something that doesn't seem right. You raise it, and then legal team starts researching it. So I think the key isn't so much reaching out and educating as much as the reverse, saying Anson's on Slack. We're approachable. If there's anything that's going off on your meter, there it's costless to send a Slack message to say, I'm doing this. there's something that doesn't seem right to me. There's something that was raised, something that somebody brought up. And so for me, my objective is to make sure legal is approachable, make sure it's fun, make sure it's interesting, make sure that our response is quick, is interesting, is useful. So you'll see that I've tried to make it more interesting. So when I make a response, I've tried to kind of explain my thought process. Um, I try and be approachable. When we were in the office, there was a jar of candy on my table. So if you came and had a legal problem, you were free to take a piece of candy. Unfortunately, that's not so available anymore. But we're here. We're part of your legal team, so make use of it.
This has opened up a whole new world of iQmetrix growing up, which is really helpful to hear about. So thank you very much for your time. It's been really good to catch up with you and to learn more about this.
No problem. I love to talk, and it's good to kind of get my face out there so that more people come and ask legal about problems that they're encountering.